I couldn't believe how quickly it spread. One minute I was working, next minute flames were everywhere. All around me, I heard blasts and explosions, one right after another. It was the most terrifying experience I ever had.
I always assumed that a fire would be painfully bright, almost blinding. Boy, was I wrong. The smoke was so thick, it was so black, I could barely see my own hand in front of my face.
Everywhere I turned, there was a wall of smoke. My lungs were burning, and every breath I took was more painful than the last. I've never felt such panic before.
These people were lucky. They got out alive. But nearly 5,000 people every year aren't as fortunate. Whether at home or at work, fire can take a deadly toll. And in addition to the cost in human life, industrial fires will cost billions of dollars and thousands of jobs this year alone. But tragedies such as these don't have to happen. The majority of all fires are caused by unsafe acts, and unsafe acts are preventable. The bottom line, when it comes to fire prevention, your actions are critical.
Hey, Brian, you can't throw that in there.
Well, why not?
Don't you remember what we covered in orientation last week? I mean, flammable waste, like that rag there, has got to go in the proper container. The oily waste can.
Right, I'm sorry. We don't want any fires around here.
No matter where you work or what you're doing, chances are that sooner or later you'll be faced with, or could be the cause of, a situation which could turn into a deadly fire. Such a seemingly harmless act as throwing an oily rag in the wrong container could very well end in tragedy, as could these other common hazards. Plugging too many pieces of equipment into an outlet, carelessly throwing a lit cigarette into a wastebasket filled with paper, storing a flammable substance too close to a heat source. These are just 3 examples of unsafe acts that are all too common, acts that could lead to fire. Today's program will show you how to recognize these dangers, and will explain what you should do to correct them. We'll also examine steps you can take to prevent fire hazards from occurring in the first place. And we'll discuss the importance of knowing your company's emergency procedures inside and out, so that you'll be prepared should a fire start. We've broken fire prevention and protection into 4 general categories: housekeeping, electrical, heat sources, and planning. Based on these categories, we've developed a fire safety checklist that will explain what you can do to protect yourself, your co-workers, and your family from a deadly fire. Let's begin with housekeeping. It's a well-known fact that clutter and debris can result in fire. That's why you should follow these steps. Clean up spills immediately.
Hey, Tim.
What? Now, great. Now I have to clean that up.
Well, can't you clean it up later? I need your help now.
Look, you know we're supposed to take care of spills right away.
It's just a little spill.
Size doesn't matter, Kelly. Besides, it's flammable. Leaving it here would be a fire hazard.
Keep work areas free of clutter. Whether at home or at work, allowing papers, boxes, and any other combustible materials to accumulate is just asking for trouble. Make it a part of your regular routine to clear away materials that could fuel a fire. Put combustible waste in the proper receptacles. All oil, paint, and grease-soaked rags, shavings, and other combustible waste must be disposed of properly. Keep stairways, aisles, and exits clear.
Oh, John, am I glad to see you. Someone blocked the fire exit with these boxes, so I thought I'd move them. Where do you think I should put them?
Well, after all I've said, people should know better than that. Well, I'm glad you're so conscientious. Why don't you put them over here for now? And thanks, Nancy. I'm going to find out who's responsible for this.
You've just learned some housekeeping steps that will help you to prevent a fire or to protect you and others should one break out. So make sure you do your part. Take responsibility for maintaining clean and orderly surroundings, whether at work or at home. Taking responsibility also means learning how to prevent or correct electrical fire hazards. And that's the next category on our fire safety checklist. First, don't overload circuits. If you put too much demand on a power source, wires could heat up and eventually cause a dangerous fire.
Hey, Marty, don't use that adapter. That outlet's already full.
Yeah, you're right. Shouldn't add any more to it. I'll get an extension cord and use another outlet.
Inspect all electrical cords for frays and broken wires before plugging them in. Don't use them if the cords are defective.
Boy, looks like it's time to get a new drill.
Look for other problems in electrical equipment, such as exposed or cracked wires, overheating motors, and faulty switches.
Something wrong with your machine, Bernice?
Yeah, it sounds like it's straining, and it's running much slower than usual, and it feels hot right here.
You tell the boss about this?
No, I didn't want to bother him.
Wait a minute. It could be something serious. Who knows? It could even start a fire. I think you should tell him about it right now.
You know, you're right.
Use properly grounded equipment.
Oh, brother. Hey, John, somebody broke the grounding prong on this extension cord.
Hey, you can't use it then.
Well, this job only takes a second.
Oh, wait a minute. It only takes a second for an accident to happen. So tag that cord and go get yourself another one now.
Always take the proper precautions when working with electrical equipment, and never ignore an electrical fire hazard. Follow your company's guidelines for removing, repairing, or reporting the problem, and do the same for any type of fire hazard. Again, you must do everything possible to prevent a fire from occurring in the first place. Now, our next category, heat sources, will give you additional guidelines to help you meet this important goal. Store flammables away from direct heat.
Well, I guess I won't be needing the gasoline anymore. Carburetor's all set.
Gasoline, propane, and other flammables must be kept in proper containers that are clearly marked and stored in well-ventilated areas. They must never be stored near any type of heat source, such as furnaces, heat ducts, heaters, or hot dryers.
Wait, what am I doing? I can't store gasoline next to a heater. It'd blow the house up. Better put this out in the shed.
Take special care with flammable and combustible materials. Sparks from static electricity are a particularly serious concern. Static electricity is usually caused by friction, and when transferring flammable liquids from one container to another, a buildup of static electricity, either on you or the containers, may ignite flammable vapors and cause a fire or explosion. A way to prevent this static electricity buildup is by making sure grounding and bonding wires are in use. If they're not, don't use the equipment and report the missing wires to your supervisor. Make sure you know all necessary procedures for working with or near flammable and combustible materials. How do you know if a substance is flammable or combustible? Read all labels carefully. If you have further questions, read the material safety data sheet or check with your supervisor. Extinguish smoking materials properly. Matches and cigarettes are also dangerous heat sources and are a common cause of many fires.
Looks like break's over. Time to get back to work.
I've got a lot of work to do.
Hey, Kelly, forget something?
I'm so stupid. That's a great way to start a fire, huh?
Obey all no smoking signs. The fact is that careless use of matches, cigarettes, and other smoking materials cause almost a quarter of all fires. Remember that no smoking signs are posted to protect your safety. Heat sources plus flammable or combustible materials all too often add up to fire. Remember that the one element in this equation that can prevent disaster is you. Taking personal responsibility and following all the preventive steps we've discussed thus far is an essential part of fire safety. But there's still another important component to consider: planning. And that's our final checklist category. Note the location of fire extinguishers and alarms.
Marty, did you watch the news last night? I heard there was a big fire down at the hotel. They had to bring in firefighters from 3 counties.
Oh, yeah. You know, I checked the batteries in our smoke detector at home right after I heard that on the news.
Funny you should say that. That's the first thing I did when I got to work this morning. Make sure I knew where the fire extinguishers and alarms were.
Oh, yeah. There's one right there. You never know when we might need it.
Should a fire break out, you don't want to waste valuable time trying to locate extinguishers and alarms. Note their locations now so that you'll be prepared later. Realize, however, that you should only use extinguishers if you have been trained to do so. Be aware of the nearest fire exits and know which one you should use.
Oh, it sounds like it's another fire drill. Come on, let's get out of here.
Where's the fire exit?
I keep forgetting you just got transferred here. The one we're supposed to use is down there. Just follow me.
Don't waste time figuring out which exit leads to safety. Find out which one you're supposed to use today. Understand the steps to take to report a fire.
So the first thing to do is dial 911.
In case of fire, follow your company's established response procedure. Know who to notify, what information to provide, and when to sound the alarm. Know your company's evacuation procedures.
Remember, follow the steps I told you to sound the alarm.
Right, and then we evacuate immediately.
We're supposed to meet in the parking lot near the guard shack.
Yeah, it's important that everybody gather in the same place so that I can make sure that everybody's made it out okay.
Plan now to protect yourself and others later. Remember, should a fire break out, knowing what to do could well mean the difference between life and death. But of course, as you learned today, your plan of action must also include working to prevent fires in the first place. All of the categories on our checklist, housekeeping, electrical, heat sources, and planning, play an essential role in fire safety. Let's take a minute to review them now. Always be sure to follow these housekeeping practices. Clean up spills immediately. Keep work areas free of clutter. Put combustible waste in the proper receptacles. And keep stairways, aisles, and exits clear. Work to prevent electrical fire hazards by taking these steps. Don't overload circuits. Inspect all electrical cords for frays and broken wires. Look for other problems in electrical equipment. And always use properly grounded equipment. Use these precautions with heat sources. Store flammables away from direct heat. Take special care with flammable and combustible materials. Extinguish smoking materials properly. And obey all no smoking signs. And remember the importance of planning with these necessary steps. Note the location of fire extinguishers and alarms. Be aware of the nearest fire exits. Understand the steps to take to report a fire. And know your company's evacuation procedures. Fire. It's a terrifying and potentially deadly experience. But the fact is that 60% of all fires are preventable. Remember today's checklist. And always make it a point to follow its guidelines both on and off the job. The bottom line is that it's up to each and every one of us to take action and do everything we can to make fire safety a reality.